You are listening to The Black Landscape with Andrea Spearman, where Black excellence is always trending. Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Andrea Spearman, and this is The Black Landscape, where we engage with emerging and established Black leaders here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Thanks for tuning in again. Don't forget to leave a review of the show on Apple Podcasts or in the comments of our social media. I'm your girl, Andrea Spearman, and I'm a light-skinned Black woman with my dark brown curly hair up in a poof today. I'm wearing my dusty pink hoodie that reads in white letters, "The future is female." And today my glasses, let me take them off so I can see what glasses am I wearing today. Oh, great. They're the pink ones that match my hoodie. So we're here with our special guest, Don Reed. Introduce yourself to the people.
Ooh, ooh. So glad to be here. I'm Don Reed. Today I'm wearing a black turtleneck that is short sleeve. It's a kind of a cool look there. I'm a chocolate brown skin, 6'2", black male. My pronouns are he and him. And I'm wearing some stark black frames that I get a lot of compliments on. So I'm feeling good. I just did a wonderful breathing exercise and I'm ready. I'm loving this.
Thank you so much, Don. Yes, I love that chocolatey black. It's so funny. We love to describe ourselves with these kind of food flavored or
Caramel
luscious, delicious, right? These luxurious terms.
Right.
Yeah. And welcome, Don. We're so glad to have you here. For those who may not be familiar with who you are, please, give us a brief description of who you are, because we're going to jump into some deeper dives later, but just a brief, exploration of who you are.
I'm Don Reed. I am a comedian and a storyteller. And storyteller is a wonderfully broad term that I envelop because I do storytelling on stage in the theater. I have done storytelling for television and film, and a lot of voiceover and animation as well. It all falls under storytelling, and stand-up itself is storytelling as well. Even a joke, two guys walk into a bar or whatever it may be, that's the beginning of a story. So it's about comedy, storytelling across different media and platforms, including the theater.
I'm a storyteller myself, so I get it. I love it. Take us back to the very beginning. Describe how you grew up here in the Bay Area.
I grew up here in the Bay Area, and this also relates to what this show is about. I grew up in Oakland, California, East Oakland in the 70s, and my stepfather invited us to be involved in that religion that rhymes with Jehovah's Witnesses. Just say that
okay.
it rhymes with that. No birthdays, no Christmas, a lot of strict lifestyle. And I couldn't take it anymore. So at age 16, I moved in with my real father, but I didn't know he was a pimp.
Oh.
I had no idea, right? I didn't know. And I didn't know the whole time. Exactly. And the thing is, it's important to note pretty quickly that as I was growing up around my father, he was very funny, very super creative. He could draw, he could paint. He had some opportunities to be in the comedy world himself. But my mother told me later he never learned to read and write. So he acted like he didn't want to do it. He had some offers from some very solid people. He was a conga player and just hilarious. And people would say, "You should be a comedian. I got to hook up this comedian. We're open for this huge comedian in San Francisco." And the comedian would hang out with my father after the show and say, "Hey, I can get you connected." My father's like, no, I ain't trying to do all that. Just for fun. And then they say, "Well, you could sell your material." He's like, "No, ain't nobody trying to do all this. You can write for other people." I'm like, "No, not what I want to do." But he actually couldn't do it, and he didn't want to be seen in that light. But for that reason, he pushed me away from his life and towards the books, like big time. My father would come in any hour of the night, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning from being in the streets, and he would still wake me up to go to school every morning. This is after I left the strict lifestyle. It was very formatted, never missed a day, straight A's. I moved over into pimp land, I didn't miss no days over there either. I thought I was going to be able to miss some. I thought I was going to get the party and fire up. He's like, no, no, baby, you ain't going where I am. You're going somewhere
Right.
else. So,
Right.
but but it was interesting growing up in Oakland because I was pretty studious and I had a lot of tics. Everybody called me Blinky.
Mm.
I blinked my eyes incessantly. I actually started out with far more tics and habits than that. It involved me clicking my tongue and blinking my eyes and hooking my head left and right. But people focus on the blinking. I said, "You're doing a lot of blinking, boy." But I started a hurricane with all that blinking. But over there, but what I found out is when I got on stage, Andrea, I get on stage to give a speech in the congregation, and I realized that while I was up there, I wasn't blinking, I wasn't ticking or anything. I found some kind of center while I was up there speaking. Now, as soon as I got off stage, all of it came right back.
Everything came right on back. You was all over. You was popping and locking.
Popping and locking. No, you didn't. But that's very accurate. Click, click, blink, blink. I was pretty nerdy, and I got bullied quite a bit for that blinking stuff. I got in class though, in a music class. I was in a music class, and our school, our elementary school, didn't have very much money, and so the instructor said he would bring out a phonograph and an album for people that know what an album is, right?
Mm-hmm.
He'd bring it out, and he'd say, if the school could afford, oh, you got one right there. There you go.
I live for vinyl.
Oh, vinyl's so dope. So it's ultra dope. Is what it is. He said, he would play a album. He say, if the school could afford a horn, it would sound like this. If this school could afford some drums, it would sound. And he would play recordings. But I started mimicking because my father would kind of do conga sounds, dum dum bra bra, dum 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 bra bra, dum bra dum dum dum. When he didn't have his drums, he'd say, "Baby, I thought of this new beat." It goes dum 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 dum, oh dum 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 dum. And so, having heard that at home, I was in class, and the instructor saying the horn would sound like this. So I started trying to do the horn like. And then after a time, I realized I could mimic just about any sound I heard. So I started doing cars driving by and birds.
It's like they're outside my window.
Right? I'm telling you. And then at some point I learned how to do dogs, how to do a dog from far away. And
wow.
Later on, I start making space sounds and stuff like that. And I started incorporating that in my speeches in junior college. When I moved in with my father, I was in high school. I was giving some speeches in class, but I didn't have to go door to door anymore or give any speeches in the congregation. Little speech classes in high school. And then I got on the speech team in junior college, and the instructor really pushed me to bring my physical and vocal talents to any speech I gave. Like, some people perform and they only do like sounds or whatever as their entertainment, but I use it to season my storytelling.
So I like that. Come on, season
right?
it.
Exactly. Sprinkle it with a little sea salt or something like that, right? So that was an interesting run all that time. But we went through some rough times financially back then because my father, I don't know, this is something I've never even mentioned in an interview before, but my father was partying a lot while he was married to my mother. So before he got kicked out and they got a divorce, he would come home and he'd say to my mother, "Oh, baby, they messed up on my check again. They messed up on my check. I can't believe they messed up on my check." My mother told me later, he wasn't going to work. He wasn't going to work. He was hanging out, partying during the day instead of going to work and coming home with a check for $11 that wasn't going to cut it. So some of the financial struggles we went through weren't necessary, but my father was a fun-loving guy. He'd rather have fun than be overly responsible. But he saw clearly those were shortcomings, and then that's why he was pushing me so hard.
He said, "Do as I say, not as I do."
Right. Another thing that I figured out later on were the sex trade, and there are sex workers who by design want to be in that business, and that's their choice. And there are people who are pressed into it via physical violence, drugs, coercion. And this guy named Troutmouth, and he's in the show. This guy named, they called him Troutmouth because he looked just like a rainbow trout, right? His lips would turn way down. And he had this laugh. Andrea, his laugh was like, what's happening, man? What's happening, man?
So a pimp named Slickback.
Right, Slickback. His name was Troutmouth.
Come on, Troutmouth.
And Troutmouth, one day, he wasn't supposed to be doing this, but he said, let me break down this game for you. He said, there's different levels of pimps. There's guerrilla pimps who use physical coercion. And I know why you want to do that, because now you got somebody you're working with walking around with a black eye. Now, that ain't even smart to do. Then you got syrup pimps who get girls caught up on drugs, and they use that as a tool. So then you got what you call finesse pimps, which is what I'm in that game. When you talk a fast game, you talk about what we're going to do together, baby. See, we're working together. Oh, that's what he said. But your daddy was a different category called chose. So your daddy got chose. Women who were already in the game knew your father was fun. He wasn't going to be putting his hands on them. He wasn't be trying to get them on no drugs. And he was more like a madam, a middleman for truck drivers all over the Bay Area. So they would flee all the other pimps doing all this dirty stuff to him and being just a business dynamic with your father. He said he had the cars and the hats and all that stuff, but he was in the chose category. He said, but I ain't on that level like your daddy, so I gotta use some fast talking. But it was interesting that I didn't even know there were these categories, and that it's never a good thing to be involved, I would think, in the world if you could avoid it. Other than sex workers who choose that that's their life, there are sex workers that this is my choice to do this. I make a living at it. I'm good at it. I enjoy it. But the lion's share of people are pulled in and yanked in, and that's why I try to mention at the end of a lot of my shows to be involved in Missy.org, MISSSEY, AIDS, young women and non-binary individuals who were caught up in the slave trade or twisted into that life, a way to escape it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. But those early days, going back from the time of like the junior college area, I got recruited to UCLA on a speech and debate scholarship. But it was only a partial scholarship. And I got to a window of time where I ran out of money and I was homeless while I was going to UCLA, but nobody knew. I played it off. I told my friend that I lived in the dorm, and I told the people in the dorm that I lived with my friend. So I would hang out with people, make them laugh, and wait for the right time for them to say, "Hey, you just want to crash here tonight?" Hoping they would say that. And I was always good on a Friday and Saturday night. Students were partying. Don, we're partying in room 207. We're going to crash over here. Oh. But if it was a school night, people were studying and I had to find somewhere to go. So I ride the bus till 3 o'clock in the morning to the end of the street, trying to make my jacket or my backpack into a pillow. I was sleeping in the restrooms. I was sleeping in the women's restrooms, actually, because they had those little couches in there back in the day. I never got good rest because I didn't have an alarm clock. So I used to be waking up through the night because I don't want to be caught up in the morning. Hey, there's a black man in the restroom, in the women's restroom. Yeah, so I wanted to wake up hella early to be checking the clock the whole time. But those were some pretty tough times. I slept in the bushes before, were deep in the bushes where nobody would see me. But all that stuff was, all stuff that made me stronger when I look back on it, Just make you look back. Interesting. Very interesting.
Tough times create tough people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, that was not in the docket. And
I
I'm
know,
glad you
right?
shared that with me because I'm glad you shared that because the people need to know. It's not all glitz and gold to get to these dreams, to get to these accolades. Like, people really go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. They really, really do. I went through a time where I was going with this girl. She was in a fast part of life. She was working in a fast lane of life while I was in junior college, and her name was Bonnie. She had the most unusual voice. She's like, Donnie, you know I care about you, right? I'm like, ooh, that voice. Ooh, that's a lot right there, right? And she said to me once, she said, Donnie, you know I care about you. You know I wouldn't lead you in the wrong direction. So I want to tell you right now, at this point in your life, you need to really focus and start selling cocaine. I'm like, what?
Wait, ma'am, what?
Right, exactly. Says you need to be
Hold
selling
on.
cocaine. She said, you go into that little white junior college. You know, they got them little white kids. They got trust funds. They got credit cards. They got checking accounts. Your father's friend Tuck is one of the biggest drug dealers in Oakland. Get some packages and sell them at your little white school. I'm trying to tell you. And me, who learned slow.
Listen, Bonnie's not wrong. There's some truth in that, but carry on.
I went to Tuck, the drug dealer, and he started. He said, what you talking about, boy? And he was doing really well. I mean, he was in the game. I said, I created a little business model, and I did it on a collegiate level. I have a little business schematic here, and I think I can increase your revenue stream via my junior college. He's like, what you talking about, boy?
Right.
And I said, I think I can increase your revenue stream. He said, I'm about to go to prison for 30 days. He said, yeah, I got a nice house, and I got a money green rose and a money green Benz, but I'm about to go to prison for 30 days. I got a relationship with the police, but I got to keep it on the low. I got to keep that whole thing on the low, but I got to do these 30 days to save face for what we got going on. It got a little too hot. And while I'm in there, certain dudes going to be gunning for me because I stole their territory while it was inside. He said, so now I'm about to go in there and deal with all that shit. And you got college and opportunities. Get the fuck away from me and stay away from people like me too. Boy, don't you know your daddy would kill me if I got you caught up in this? So my father had already spread the word. He's like, he gonna be somebody. He gonna be somebody. So it was a very interesting scenario.
It's so interesting the way that parents show their love.
Right?
For him to kind of put the word out. If my son even come over here with this nonsense, send him away.
I know, right?
He was looking out for you. That's why he was looking out for you while acknowledging that he was not necessarily living right, but he wanted more for you.
Yes, he did. I'll tell you something interesting. I shared this the other night, but it's not in my shows, but I shared it, a story. When my father left and my stepfather moved in, we were in Jehovah's Witnesses. I try not to diss it too much because I learned a lot about public speaking. That was the nascent beginning of me learning about public speaking was through that. So I try not to just, they ain't nothing. It's not for me. I'm not.
Yeah, no, it's
now. Yeah, but I learned
different strokes for different folks.
Yes, but I was there and I learned a lot about it. And then I moved in with my father. And, there's so many things you can't celebrate, Christmas and all kinds of stuff. And so I moved in with my father, and it was my 17th birthday party. I was all excited. We were playing the song that was out then was I remember when I was a little nappy-headed boy. That was on. Everybody.
Ooh.
Right. You got it. The whole neighborhood showed up. All the girls, hey, Don, happy 17th birthday. You look cute. That's some of my first kisses I ever got. all nerdy and blinking, going, hey, "Thank you for that kiss," right? But at some point, the party came to a halt and the music turned off. And everybody backed away from the door, but my father walked towards it. And my older brother was like, "Yo, yo, yo, back up, back up." And I could make out through the people, there was a guy at the front door, a little older than me, brandishing a gun. And my father was talking to him at the door. He said, "Yeah, I said I'm coming in this party." My father said, "You ain't coming in this party." And the guy said, "Well, look like we're going to have a problem. I'm just trying to have some fun. And now it look like somebody going to die tonight." My father said, "That looked like a 22. So I think by the time you get a shot off, maybe both of us going to die tonight, huh?" And the guy was like, "What?" And he took off down the stairway. My father turned around. He said, "I thought this was supposed to be a birthday party. I thought I was supposed to be having some fun. Turn the music back on." Da, 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 da,
Wow.
da, da. Right? But here's the thing that I didn't get until later. My father realized I hadn't had a birthday party in 5 years because of the religion. And he wasn't going to let nothing mess up that party.
Right.
Nothing. So he's willing to stand in front of a guy with a gun. No, this birthday party is going down. My son's going to have a birthday. So it's fascinating stuff. It's too much.
Wow. Wow. That young man said, "You know what? Never mind. I'm good, sir. Thank you. I'm good. Never mind."
Never mind, right?
Yeah. Wow. And again, that's the power of a parent's love. Like, do you share some of that in your show? I don't want to get too
Yeah.
deep into the show. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later, but that's what you're sharing. That's really the outline of this. Your father, no matter what he was doing outwardly, his character is really shining through in what you're sharing with me.
Yeah, that was a very fascinating thing because he was definitely living an outlaw existence. What he was doing was against the law, and probably now, if he organized an OnlyFans account and asked individuals, "Are you interested in being a part of this business?" it would be a whole different scenario, like they have in Las Vegas. But in those times, it was super illegal. And so the perspective of many people is like, that guy is just bad news. But people are layered. They're complicated beings and they have all these different layers. One thing I want to tip on the show is my stepfather was very abusive, verbally and physically, very controlling. You're going to do it this way or it ain't going to be no other way. I'll share something humorous that he did. Then I'll go back to that beat of his rough side, which you can help me remember. But at one point, he came to me one day. He was very specific about what we wore, how our hair was, like a
How
little
you present it.
automaton going to the religion and be steadfast and polished and clean. And so I had an afro, a little nice size afro, and he would say, "You got," he called me boob, "you've got a crater in the back of your hair. Your afro separates itself. It's created a crater. This could be in Arizona somewhere, but it's in the back of your head right now. And you need to understand, you need to get your hair straight." So then he was always telling me stuff about hygiene and how my hair was. And one day he came to me, and I'm not making none of this up. He said, "Boob, your eyebrows are really thick. They're like a little wolf boy. They're really thick little wolf boy eyebrows. And you really need to get them together. I do have really thick eyebrows." He's like, "But you need to get them under control. So here's what you're going to do. And you're going to do it, or you're going to be in huge trouble with me. Every day, after you finish brushing your teeth, I want you to rinse off your toothbrush, and I want you to brush your eyebrows with your toothbrush. And you're going to do it, or you're going to be huge." He said, "I want you to do it and get them in grain. Get them and go with the grain. Don't go against the grain, and you're back to the little wolf boy look. So make sure you brush those eyebrows with the toothbrush every day. Do it, or you'll be in huge trouble with me." So I'm knocking on doors 100 hours a month. I'm missing birthdays and Christmas, and I got to remember to brush my damn eyebrows every day too. So I went to school one day, and there's a guy named Waddell, and Waddell had a lift. He had a lift. He said, let me ask you something. He said, let me ask you something. He said, how come today, how come your eyebrows are sky blue? Why are they sky blue? In my rush to get out of the house, I done rinsed all my toothpaste off my toothbrush
Wow.
and gave myself some
Wow.
Eddie Munster sky blue eyebrows.
Ooh, child.
It had dried up. I didn't know it. I just was on the bus going to school
Wow.
thinking, like, let me get to school. I got to get to school.
As if you didn't have enough going on. Now you got.
Now I got sky blue eyebrows. And only my friend would teach me, hey,
Ooh.
how come your eyebrows are sky blue? Why are they sky blue? I'm like, what are you talking? Oh, the crest. It's the crest. The
Child.
crest wasn't rinsed off the toothbrush completely.
He thought you was starting a new trend. Like, what is going on? Like, bro, you ain't know
Right?
about these blue eyebrows? What?
You know
It's the
nothing about this?
latest.
The latest jumping off.
Mm-hmm.
But that same stepfather who did all that controlling and all those whoopings and all that telling me what to do, he's the same person who said to me when I was 13, he said, you're going to be a speaker, you're going to be a performer. Trust me, I know it. He said, I'm a BMW salesman. I'm a very good speaker. He was the first black BMW salesman in North America. And he said,
Wow.
you are a great speaker, and this is what you're going to be doing for a living. This is your gift. So I thought it very ironic when I talk about the complexities of my father being an outlaw, but then also leading me to higher ground in UCLA. I got my stepfather on the other side, who's very controlling, very domineering, and abusive, but he's the one who revealed my gift to me.
Mm.
He's the one who said, you'll be doing this. You would never think that the same person who treated you that poorly would be the same person to reveal your gift to you.
Right. Wow. That's how it happens sometimes, you know? The people you meet in life can sometimes be a mixed bag.
Totally. Absolutely a mixed bag, right?
Yes. Sometimes they'll give you the blues as well as give you encouragement. But right now, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back to catch up on more of the story with Don Reed. To catch up on previous episodes of The Black Landscape, download on Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, and Google Podcasts. Be sure to leave a review, 5 stars if you love us. When we come back, we'll hear more from Don Reed. We're back with Don Reed. So, Don, you know, we're talking about, where you came from, and now we're starting to move into how did Don Reed become Don Reed? Because I read in my notes that, you was working with Robert Townsend, who, hello, legend, black legend, black excellence. So how did you go from, speeches in undergrad? How did we get over here to Hollywood?
I like that setup. I was living in a retirement hotel serving breakfast for the elderly for 5
Oh.
years. This is coming off of the homeless blaze, but still going to UCLA at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I stumbled onto a great job. Before I got that job, though, I did a tryout to be a stripper.
Wait, hold
Yeah,
on. What?
but but it wasn't a good idea because I weighed like 11 pounds and
Oof.
I looked like a chicken bone with a Jerry curl balance on top of it.
Oh no.
If I can go on a slight tangent and get back into it real fast, when I
Mm-hmm.
went out, this is when they would have classifieds, and it said seeking male dancers for a Chippendales like review. Oh no, you didn't. The double finger roll to the left, turn it over to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Seeking male strippers for a Chippendales like review. Uh, come on down to the last call. It's called the last call. And I put on some tight jeans and a T-shirt and had my little afro. I was ready to go. And I had this friend named T. He's a friend of my brother's, fast talker, all up and stuff. But he let me stay at his house. He didn't know I was homeless. He was a friend who I would bounce back and forth between the dorms hanging out in his place. He thought I had a dorm. But each time he said, hey, just kick it here tonight. You don't need to go all the way back over there. He didn't know he was saving me from the buses and the restrooms. But anyway, he had a extreme Jerry curl, just extreme Jerry curl. And he said, he saw me ready to leave. He said, where you going? I said, to a job interview. He said, job interview for what? I said, it doesn't matter. He said, job interview for what? I said, to be a stripper. He said, to be a stripper? And you going to what you got on right now? Let's get you ready. Let's get you ready for real.
Right. Cue the montage. Cue the music.
Cue the makeover montage. He said, hey, women like leather. They like leather. He put on a brown leather jacket and matching leather pants. He said, but before you put that on, you got to put this on. And he put on a purple G-string. Now, why he had a purple G-string just readily available? I have no idea. But they was just ready.
Sir, he was too ready.
And he tossed it at me. I was like, ooh, where's that been? Right?
Right. Like, why do you have this ready? What's going on here?
And he said, now let's get your hair ready. And he turned my hair into the ultimate Jerry curl with pink and all the emollients and everything else. He put all that on me, and it was, and I had the activator. And activator sounds like something that goes with a superhero. Activator, right? The superheroes, check this out, Andrea. Superheroes wear capes, right? They wear capes, and that's just about what I would have needed to catch all that wet stuff rolling down the back of my neck.
All that
I needed a
doggone juice.
Doggone juice. I went to the call. It was a hot ass day. I caught the bus, and I was on the bus. It was hot. I got off the bus. I was squishing down the street because he told me to put baby oil all over my body, but it was trapped in that hot leather. Out on the G-string,
oh my goodness,
leather jacket, the leather pants, 103 degrees with baby oil and Jericho juice running down the side.
A mess.
Whistling down the street. I went inside. It was in the daytime. The audition was in the daytime, 2:00, but it was dark inside. It was like 10 or 15 guys standing around. They were standing around. And the guy said, okay, glad you could all be here. We're going to put Chippendales out of business. That's our goal. And so we're going to have you guys try out right now and dance. And he gave people different names. He gave this one guy named, this big muscular guy, called him Thunder. Then there's another guy, he named him Majestic. He said, you can't just go on stage with your regular name. We got to give you a character.
Right. You can't be Bob up there.
Right. Don't be Bob undulating up there. So he just, I said, I'm going to throw some names out. Just throw these names out. He said, Don, we just throwing names around. Let's practice with it. He said, you got your songs ready? I said, yeah. He said, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Lil Chocolate.
Wow.
I said, I don't know if I like that name.
Right. Don't put little while you're trying to get naked. Like,
Yeah, don't throw little in nowhere, right?
Right.
And I went there. I danced to Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. And I danced to ba 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 ba. Let's dance. Put on your red shoes and dance. David Bowie.
Yes, I love that song.
I went to the retirement hotel interview the next day, and I got the job. But then I got a call. Absolutely, thank goodness. It was on the answering service. So I didn't want it. It was at my friend's house. He let me use his answering service for calls. And it was like, hey, Don, this is Mark over at the last call. We're going to hire you as one of our strippers. Well, here's a couple of things, Don. First of all, slow down. And you're moving real fast. You look kind of nervous. You're doing a lot of blinking. So let's cut back on that. But you're a good dancer. Also, cut back whatever the oils or emollients, whatever it was. Less of that. Less of that. You're gonna have other dancers slipping on the stage with all that time. So let's do less of that now. I see you Thursday night. A little chocolate.
He said, "You bringing hazardous materials to the workplace." Oh, I can't take it.
You're bringing hazardous materials to the workplace.
He
Oh
said
my
all that
goodness.
oil and whatnot. You making it. He said you turned it into a slip and slide. Like that's not the vibe.
Not the vibe we're looking for. But I didn't have to do that, and I got the job at the retirement hotel. And while I was living there,
Small blessings. Small blessings.
Right, serving breakfast to the elderly every day. Created some great relationships with some of those folks there over the years. Really listened to them, really listened to them and capture some wisdom. And I was doing stand up in the area, and Robert Townsend saw me one night. He said, "Man, I'm doing this movie called Hollywood Shuffle, and we ain't got no money, but I can pay you in gas and chicken wings." He said, "Everybody needs something to eat, and everybody needs some gas." So everybody would line their car
not
up.
Untrue.
On his credit card, one car after another, we all line up and meet him and get our tank filled up by Robert off his credit card. And then when we were on the set, there were wings and something to eat there. But the breakthrough thing that Robert did, and I want to mention this on the air, is when Robert was going through negotiations with different studios to sell Hollywood Shuffle, he told the Samuel Goldwyn studio, "I'll sell you this movie, but I kept detailed notes of every hour, even over time, that all my actors, all my crew worked and donated their time. I want you to pay them their full rate and get them in the union." And that's how I got in the union, from doing that job for wings and gas. But after that, we did the Partners in Crime HBO specials. And I got known for doing my Kung Fu theater bit. Your Kung Fu. I did a dubbed Kung Fu movie bit. And that got me launched into the college circuit because the bit was really clean. And I was able to go out and do stand-up around the country. Sinbad actually hooked me up with the college circuit. And this is something I want young listeners who are working on something to understand. Sinbad said, "Don, get me a no excuse tape. Get me a no excuse tape, and I can hook you up. Don't let it be, somebody walked in front of the camera at this point, and at this point, the sound kind of went out right here, and I forgot what I was saying right here, but the rest is good." He said, "No, wait until you have no excuse level product to show, and then you go. Because when you go sooner than that, people put an automatic, when they don't think you're ready, they put an automatic time stamp in their head on how long they think you'll be ready. So you might have just taken you another 2 months and you would have been on point. But when you came with that essentially half-ass content, they put 3 years on there. So when you come back and say, "I'm ready," they go like, "No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not." So you got to make sure that when you start stepping into professional circles to be a professional in any field, and in my case, in the entertainment field, if you wrote a script, if you created a short, you can play around on Instagram and stuff, showing that stuff around. But if you're trying to go to a real entity to get real work done, it's got to be polished. It's got to be no excuse level. And if it's not a no excuse level, don't try to run up to people saying, "I'm ready. I'm ready to be in the business. I'm 21. I'm ready to go." Are you? Are you, though? Be honest with yourself. Are you a professional, or you're in a rush to try to get in the door? But I waited. I did not rush. It took me from the time that Sinbad said, "Get that tape ready for me," it took 10 months. And I had a bunch of tapes in the interim. I could have showed him. I said, "Nope, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait." I got the exact no excuse tape. I gave it to him. And that year I got booked at 70 colleges and universities to do stand-up. And that was a game changer. That moved me out of the Kipling. And at that same time that I moved out of the Kipling, Sinbad as well, turned me on to audience warm up. And that's the opening act warm up comedian that has everybody laughing while they're taping the show. And it's a half hour on TV, but it's like 3 to 4 hours of blah, 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 blabbing, gift of gabbing, doing material. And I did that for A Different World. NBC's A Different World. And I got a recurring role in that show as a character, Chip St. Charles, who was like overly articulate frat guy from a rich family. And I did like 6 or 7 episodes total. But I would literally be up in the audience doing the warm up and say, okay, my scene's coming up. And I run down there, do my scene, and then run back in the audience. So, but that opened up a big area for me. And this is another moment I want to share with listeners who are interested in this world. Audience warm up is a very lucrative cut. A lot of people don't know that position even exists, but it's quite lucrative. But it can be golden handcuffs. And the reason why it can be golden handcuffs is you only have to be there that day for a show. And if you're writing for a show, like you're starting out as a new writer on a TV series, like you went from writer's assistant, getting coffee, and making sure the software is on point, and you move your way up to being on staff. You're there for 15, 16 hours a day, 5 days a week. And the warm-up is only coming for 3 or 4 hours and making double what you're making, sometimes triple what you're making in one day. And you'll say, as an audience warm-up, which I was, and I could be at 3 different shows in the week. So I'm making literally 9, 10 times, 12 times, 15 times more money than a writer's assistant. But a writer's assistant that sticks with it, if they keep going and they move up to story editor and they move up to, creative consultant, they move up to executive story editor, they move up to producer, an executive producer, then you're like, I remember this writing assistant that was way, making way less than me, and I'm jumping around the different shows with the little golden handcuffs on, making these 6 figures. I'm set, I'm good. As I wait for my next shot, she worked her way through, ended up being an executive producer at A Different World, and created Living Single, which was her making 0.0000, comma, everything I made in a year, quadruple, 6, 7 times that, because she stuck that row. So it's interesting. You got to be able to take certain gigs, and some of them you got to pass on. I told Tommy Davidson around the time we were all in the mix for In Living Color, and I actually signed contracts for In Living Color. But the Fox executive said I wasn't black enough. So that was a whole nother story we can get into. But at the time I was doing the college circuit, and Tommy Davidson got some offers to do the college circuit. He hadn't done it yet. I said, don't do them all, or you'd be trapped out there. You'd be making killer money, but you're not available in town to read for that series and that series and that movie, which will exponentially change your number. I had a house and a pool and a family to take care of, so I took it. But then I started telling people who didn't have that responsibility yet to make sure you pick and choose what you're doing so you don't get locked into an area. You got to be able to be diverse in this industry to keep it going, and if you want to keep rising in it.
Yes. And, with all that success, with all that experience, and putting it together with your lived experience here in Oakland, tell me about your current show, East 14th. What's it all about, and where can folks see it?
This show is a show I started with in LA years back. I was working at NBC. I was co-running the voiceover division in advertising and promotion, promoting Seinfeld, Friends, Frasier, Tonight Show, Saturday Night Live, promoting all those shows. And there was a guy I worked with, and he said, hey, I'm working on doing a one-man show. I know you got some hookups in the stand-up world. Can you get me hooked up? And I got him a chance to do his one-man show in the HBO workspace. And I said, what's your show about? He said, I grew up in LA, and my Jewish parents are always telling me, why don't I get a job, a profession as a doctor or lawyer, but I'm in um, advertising and promotion. He said, "Where'd you grow up?" I said, "I grew up in Oakland in the '70s. My stepfather was a Jehovah's Witness, and my real father was a pimp." He said, "You need to do a show about that." So I wrote it, but I was afraid to do it. There's a lot of family laundry to hang.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of vulnerability involved in sharing authentically where you're from and what your family was about, even though you reached this point. What's all the dirt and crazy behind that? And so I worked on it. I started doing it. I intended to run it for 5 weeks, and it ran for 5 months. Then I ran off Broadway, New York. Then I brought it to the Bay Area in 2009. And it got extended 22 times. And then I partnered with the Marsh to open a second theater in Berkeley. So we have the Marsh Berkeley, and that's where the show is now. It's the 14th birthday. I have 7 different one-man shows, but this is the first one. And it's now at the Marsh Berkeley, East 14th.
Yes.
True Tales of a Reluctant Player. And it has some new stories. For people familiar with the show, I got about 4 or 5 stories you never heard before in the show now, which adds to its layers and complexity. But it's really, really, really funny, but deeply, deeply heartfelt and moving as well. And it's all about being yourself, despite what you go through, the two extremes of religion and the streets. Can you find your center and to be yourself?
Mm.
It's at the Marsh Berkeley, themarsh.org for tickets. Got to come. We'll get you some tickets. You got to come.
Of course. And it's been great talking to you, Don, really diving deep, getting to know you better.
Can I, if I can mention one last thing,
Yeah.
This show helped get me on the radar to tell a true story about something that happened to me back in '92. Johnny Carson from The Tonight Show had handpicked me to be on this. Robert Townsend actually called me to home and said, "Johnny Carson wants you to be on the show before he leaves. He's leaving in 2 months. He's handpicking you." But some people blocked it, and I didn't get to do it. And I told this story on an Apple podcast about a year and a half ago. I told the story on the Apple podcast, and I was invited to perform at the National Comedy Center in New York and tell this story about almost getting the Tonight Show. And then this host said, "How'd you like to see Don do the set that Johnny wanted him to do? It still holds up. You guys want to see it?" Audience was like, "Ah!" And Johnny Carson's family was there. And they then afterward offered me the entire 4,000 episode library to do another one-man show called The Never Too Late Show. And it's about doing amazing things late in life. When people say, time's up for you. It's called The Never Too Late Show, and it's a multimedia show that has the footage from The Tonight Show in it and pictures of me, Robert, and things moving along through the years. I'll be doing that in Marin at Deer Park Villa coming in January. But right now, it's East 14th at the Marsh in Berkeley. Got to come see it if you haven't seen it. A lot of 70s music, a lot of dancing in the show, a lot of dancing in the show. We say that.
Yes, I love it. Tell the people where they can find you, online with your socials.
Okay. I'm on Instagram a lot. Instagram, that's at Don Reed Wow. That's REED. At Don Reed Wow on Instagram. On Facebook, I'm Don Reed. I'm the black bald guy. You see me right there. And also, I have a personal page that I interact with on the most, and I try to keep up with moving off a few people at a time. A lot of friend requests there, but you can follow me as Don Reed Comedian on my business site as well. But I interact with that directly as well. I actually answer my emails and my Facebook and direct messages. I don't have somebody doing it for me, because if you don't engage with people, how are you going to really make real contact?
Well, thank you so much. And everyone, Don's links will be in the caption/show notes. Again, thank you for tapping in to support Black creativity. And thank all of you out there for listening and supporting another season. Please, again, leave a review of the show on Apple Podcasts or in the comments of our social media. We repost those comments. So we want to know, we want to hear feedback from you all about if you're loving what we're talking about, if you're not liking it, how you can make some improvements. If you want to suggest a guest that was somebody we should talk to in the community, let us know. Our emails are open and our social media comments. This has been another episode of The Black Landscape with Andrea Spearman, where Black excellence is always trending.